Sila and Nivi had been inseparable since the year of the Fifth Flurry, when they were nothing but round balls of grey down huddling against the gale. While the other chicks played tag near the shore, they sat together, whispering about the stars that appeared when the sun went to sleep. They had grown up feather by feather, outgrowing their fuzz but never outgrowing each other. To Sila, Nivi wasn't just a friend, she was the map by which Sila navigated the world. As the seasons turned the ice from brilliant white to deep sapphire, their bond only hardened. They spent their days perfected the art of the bellyglide, racing down frozen slopes until they splashed into the frigid sea. Life was a rhythmic dance of shared fish and shared secrets. They assumed their story would always be written on the same sheet of ice, under the same endless sky. But the ice is never as permanent as it seems. One evening, as the wind began to bite with anew, sharp teeth, Nivi stood at the edge of the colony. Her family was calling her toward the great trek. The fish were moving, and the currents were shifting. Her colony had to move to the blue horizon, a place so far across the continent that the sun rose at a different hour. On their final night, the two friends sat away from the noise of the huddle. The sky was draped in the green and violet ribbons of the aurora. They didn't talk about the miles or the months ahead. Instead, they leaned into one another, letting their natural warmth create a small sanctuary against the frost. They realized that their shared history was a coat that no winter could pierce. When Nivi told Sila the news, the air between them felt colder than any blizzard. Sila looked at the vast expanse of white that suddenly felt like an ocean of distance. She wanted to scream at the wind to stop, to tell the stars to stay put. The thought of a morning without Nivi's familiar chirp was a silence she didn't know how to fill. Sila reached into the snow and pulled out a small, translucent blue pebble she had found in the deep shallows. It was polished smooth by 1,000 years of tides. She pressed it into Nivi's wing. "This is a piece of our home," Sila whispered. "Whenever the sun hits it, remember that the same light is touching me, too. Promise me that the distance won't freeze us." The morning of the departure arrived with a pale, golden light. Sila stood on the highest ridge as the long line of penguins began their slow march toward the horizon. She watched Nivi's silhouette grow smaller and smaller against the blinding white. Nivi turned back once, a tiny speck against the vastness, and raised a wing in a final, silent salute. Hundreds of miles away, Nivi stood on a new shore. The cliffs were steeper here, and the fish tasted of salt and iron. Everything was strange and unfamiliar. But every evening, she would pull the blue pebble from her feathers and hold it up to the fading light. She could feel Sila's promise radiating from the stone, a tiny spark of heat in a world of ice. The days that followed were quiet. Sila still went to their favorite sliding hill, but the wind felt different without Nivi's laughter to carry it. She looked at the empty space beside her during the evening huddle and felt a hollow ache. It would have been easy to let the cold settle in her chest, to let the memory of her friend drift away like falling snow. Sila decided she wouldn't let the silence win. She climbed to the windward side of the peaks and sang the songs they used to whistle together. She let her voice catch the gale, imagining her words traveling over the crevasses and through the valleys, carried by the very air that Nivi was breathing. She wasn't just singing, she was sending a bridge across the continent. Across the frozen wastes, Nivi paused. The wind carried a familiar frequency, a hum that resonated in her bones. She didn't need to see Sila to know she was there. She realized that their friendship wasn't a place they lived in, but a warmth they carried inside. The distance was just a space for their stories to grow longer until they met again. Years passed, and the ice shifted many times, but the promise remained unfrozen. Sila and Nivi grew older and wiser, their feathers scarred by the sea but their hearts kept supple by the letters they wrote in the snow and the echoes they sent through the wind. They knew now that no matter how many miles lay between them, they were always walking on the same world, beneath the same stars, forever warmed by a bond that the frost could never touch.